we have you on the phone, and I'm going to put you on hold for a minute and see if I can get Kyle on.
Okay,
Okay, hold on.
thanks.
We'd like to call the Policy and Personnel meeting to order, please. Could I have a roll call? We have 2 members participating by phone.
Jacobs?
Here?
Larson?
Here.
Charles?
Here. Okay, I need approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
I second.
All right. Any discussion on the agenda tonight? All right, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved, and now we will move on to policies for second reading. We are trying to push policies through. They got slowed down a bit because of the COVID situation, but we're trying to push these policies through so that we don't leave the new board unfinished business here. I asked Michelle if, because then when these go to the board for first reading, we want to waive policy for them coming back to committee for second reading. So I'm asking the committee if they would like to do that with these presented policies, to waive our second reading and just let them go back to the board in 2 weeks for a second reading. We asked for community input, and we did get something back on policy 522.71. So I would like to remove that from this list at this time and say that we
I'm
will
sorry,
not.
Pam, which one was that?
522.71, social media.
Perfect.
I'd like to
Good.
remove that from this list and have it come back to committee later on for some revisions possibly and some reconsideration. So is there a motion to move all of these other policies, well, not to move them, they've already been moved for first reading, but to agree that we will not require a committee second reading on these, and we will waive that and allow the board to do second reading 2 weeks from tonight?
I
So,
agree.
yeah, so I would move to waive the committee's second reading on the policies listed here tonight, with the exception of 522.71, social media.
Okay. Stephanie?
Oh,
Stephanie, are you with us?
hold on, sorry. I second.
Okay, all right, so policy 185, 185.1, 185.2, 221, 453.3 Rule 1, 453.3, Rule 2, 443.72, and 528 are all going to have the second committee reading waived so that we can hopefully get these through the board by the middle of April. Okay? All right, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Stephanie, did you vote?
Yeah, aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous that we will waive our reading, our second committee reading on these policies. And we have omitted 522.71 social media from that list. All right. I think that's it. And we will have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you both.
Do we just hold on yet?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can we do a roll call? And before you do that, let the viewers know that with this coronavirus, we've had several board members, 3 that will be calling in. We have encouraged the public to not come out for safety reasons. We are practicing our own safety here. I have on my blue gloves and my wipes that my wife sent. So I appreciate the patience of the community. We had to prolong the meeting. So I will ask Michelle to, you ready to do a roll call? No? Well, I can't sing, so I don't want to do that, but just rest assured that the district's doing everything we can to move forward to do the best that we can for the community and our children in the schools. We're looking forward to Sue hopefully giving us an update today as to where we are on providing some educational opportunities for our students in this community. It's not as easy as one might think. A district like this with a diverse population to try to reach every child with every single need. So our team has been in contact with DPI and Wisconsin Association of School Boards to find out what is doable in today's society, how do we meet the needs of the public, and also to make sure that we're meeting our transparency with the public, that everybody has an opportunity to participate. It has been a challenge. While other districts have jumped off the bridge and have found they've made mistakes, we've taken the approach of let's do it the prudent way and get it done right the first time. So having made that long speech to kill time, I think we're ready to do roll call.
Charles? Here. Klett?
Here.
Larson?
Here.
Via telephone. Miller?
Present.
Via telephone. Sanchez?
Here, but I'm having a really hard time hearing.
We're fixing that.
Pardon?
We're working on fixing that for you.
Thank you.
Wong? Here. Jacobs? Jacobs, are you there?
Here, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, she is also via telephone.
And I ask those using the audience to please be patient. This is a difficult thing with the phone, that many people coming in. There might be some glitches tonight. It's our first real show this way, so we'll do the best that we can do. Can I get approval of the agenda, please?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That passes. We will still do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Vice President Wong to lead us on that.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, John. I'm sure you were panicking, thinking, I hope I remember the words. Normally, we'd be at announcements, but or in recognitions, and since we are practicing our safety and health for our people, we are not going to have recognitions tonight. We look forward to the day that we can, and we'll do it properly when that comes. So we are now at this section of public comment. We did allow for the public to email in comments up to half an hour before the start of this meeting. There's nobody here in the audience tonight, which is a good thing, but it's also kind of sad not to see people out there that have been here all the time. So I'm going to have Michelle Shope read the comments. We had 2, Michelle? Correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, would you please read those?
Yes. The first one is from Susan Adams. I do not have her address at this time, but I did ask her to email me with her address. And her item is, she's asking, is the board discussing how to get internet access for students whose families cannot afford the internet? I've heard about schools putting buses with routers on them, and today's paper has a story about that on B3. Are there any thoughts about that? And that was from Susan Adams. The second comment that I have or question is from Greg Schneider, and again, I've asked him for his address. He indicates that he, Greg Schneider, was on the technology task force for the last strategic plan when Milt Thompson was here. And we spent a lot of time, approximately every other week for at least 3 months, discussing internet access for online learning with the possible rollout of the student iPads. That was years ago. We presented 3 or 4 options for the strategic plan to ensure that all students had access to online learning. What happened to it? And those were the 2 comments that I had.
Thank you. We always appreciate public comment. We are now at reports. The first one is the student board member report. Cassandra can't be here, but Michelle, I understand you're going to read her report?
Just have to switch screens quick, if you can bear with me.
You'll be a TV star after tonight.
No, thank you. Respectfully. Okay, so Cassandra's report is, as much as she would like to report on all of the Beloit Memorial High School March events, such as the Addams Family Musical, Key Clubs, Student Blood Drive, etc., it has become apparent that the situation we are in at the moment has postponed and/or canceled these events. On Friday, March 13th, students in the Beloit School District were told school would be canceled until April 6th or until further notice. As a student in the district, it has become quite confusing on what steps to take during an event like this, considering the district has never had an experience with these kinds of situations. Many students are questioning whether or not we will even be able to go back to school, or will the rest of our academic year remain online. This creates distress, as some students may not have the privileges of internet at home or access to electronic devices, which will inhibit their ability to complete assignments at home. There are many questions both students and staff have that will sadly go unanswered for the time being, but in the meantime, we are all trying our very best. Although it is upsetting for School District of Beloit to endure a time like this, I still very much appreciate all of our teachers and administrators who are reaching out to students for any worries they might have. As of now, we can only hope that things will progress and we are able to somewhat complete the academic year while continuing to be safe. Thank you to all of the BMHS teachers and administrators and to all of the School District of Beloit staff who are putting in their best efforts at this time. Sincerely, Cassandra Duran Vasquez.
Thank you. Planning and budget, John?
Planning and Budget met on Tuesday, March 3rd at 5:15. Ms. Miller, Ms. Sanchez, and myself were present. The items that we covered at that meeting, the first one was the discussion. It was more informational about a budget work group update. This was presented by Ms. Armstrong. This is a committee, or basically a group that they had used in the past to help to develop the budget throughout the year. We had a few questions regarding that, and we gave her approval. It was just something that she was giving us a heads up about, and they were going to go ahead and move forward with that. They were to meet every 2 weeks. So that was about 3 weeks ago, so I don't know if they've done that or not. Second item was in regards to programs, curriculum, and material. We had, first of all, a name change from AP Spanish 5 to AP Spanish Language and Culture. And let's see, that was the one item that was on that. And then the last item that we had in our meeting was the the Girls Athletic Soccer Cooperative. There's been a request to extend the contract out another 2 years by Beloit Turner. We're looking in to see possibly have it go out just 1 year. Right now, the ratio is 55 students from our school district and 5 students from Turner that are on the team. So we have yet to hear anything on that and probably won't for a while yet. Our next meeting is supposed to be next Tuesday at 5:15. It'll likely be here and by phone, I'm guessing. So anybody that has any future agenda items, if they would like to share them with me, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We are at Oversight and Finance Committee. That would be Kyle doing his report by phone.
Okay, so we met on March 10th. Seems like forever ago.
Can't hear him.
You can't hear me?
Not yet. Michelle, is there some way we can fix this? Hold on, Kyle, please.
Okay.
Kyle, can you say something?
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so we met on March 10th. Seems like a lifetime ago already. Ms. Jacobs, Ms. Charles, and I were all present. We started off with Mr. Bosco reviewing the anti-bullying processes and supporting documents with the committee members. We had asked for an update and overview of administrative reviews and evaluation. And Ms. Mellencamp explained that everyone will be using Frontline, which is the same tool that professional educators use, that the teachers use. And she explained to the committee that each executive director will evaluate the people in their own department, their own directors. And then Drs. Green and Beckley and Ms. Mellencamp are going to be meeting with the principals, and they are dividing up the principals between the three of them and working through the educator effectiveness model. So all of the building principals will be split up between those three people for evaluation. And we reiterated that this is an important piece that has been lacking in our district, so it was very important to the board that this is done and done well, so that as we go forward, we have this piece in place. We received finance reports for during 2020, which you're going to see later on tonight, and that we're trending the same way as we have in previous years. Then we had a big discussion about administrative pay ranges, and the committee had a lot of concerns as far as approving them, and then the perception that current administrators might have about if they're now at the range. So I believe that's on for tonight. So ultimately, what came out of our meeting was that we kind of changed the title a little bit so that it's more for recruitment and like hiring guidelines. And then we've postponed the college credit program because we didn't have the new and improved version of it wasn't uploaded, and some future agenda items were requested, how the AGR funding is being spent. So that should be coming, and then in a mid-year report to the board, and then our next meeting will be April 14th at 4:15.
Thank you, Kyle. Take a quick break. Dean's trying to work out some audio difficulties, so just bear with us, please. I should have said Dean with Michelle's help.
Can you say something?
Yeah, what do you want me to say? Can you hear me now?
That was good.
I don't know why it's not
Okay.
picking up.
Can you hear me, Kyle?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear it. It's not projecting
Speakerphone, though.
down here. Yeah. But like when you press the volume here, that's the reader volume, it's not the speaker volume, and I'm afraid to hit that button and cut them all off.
Yeah. Go ahead and say something, Kyle. Talk for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me now? Is this okay?
The phone's...
Do we have another phone? What about that blue one we used to use?
Doesn't
the
work here.
little dot.
Can't do much about that.
Okay. If I went up and grabbed my phone like this, could we swap it out?
Yeah, if we take a short intermission, we can hook up the old system. I got the puck and everything.
You do. We can hook that
It's
up.
just because I'm not there and not using my teacher voice. Is that it?
We can try.
No, I can hear you.
Well, that was better.
Yeah, use your teacher voice, Kyle.
Stephanie and Megan, can you hear?
I can hear Kyle great, but I can't hear Megan, yeah, I can hear people.
I can't hear Megan talk, though.
I need it muffled, but I'm doing okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Pepper,
take an
you use
intermission
your
and we'll
mic?
try a different phone?
I apologize, but we're going to have to take about a 5-minute break to see if we can swap the phone out to get the speakers to work better for our call-ins. I apologize for that.
Go ahead and read mine, your report. I'm next.
Hey, would it be? I would be willing to do like a Google Hangout or something, if that would
I
be
can
better.
do that.
Right.
Hello?
We can hear you.
What's going on? What's happening?
Hold on, mister.
Yeah, what?
Okay, we
Hello?
are at, my volume's way too loud. Policy and Personnel Committee report.
Okay.
And Charles for February 25th, and you're also going to do March 10th, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Policy and Personnel met on February 25th, and we had quite a few first reading policies. The first was Policy 162 and Policy 162 Rule 1. These had to do with new board member orientation, and there wasn't a lot of work to do on those, but we did add a couple of items and update some things. Then we had 165.1, conflict of interest, to clarify and make sure that it reflected the state statutes. We had policy 182, our policy on board quorum. And basically, that one just clarified that the board president does not count as part of a quorum, although the board president is a member, but doesn't make up the quorum, can vote, but not part of the quorum. Policy 185, standing board committees, and then 185.3 governance committee. Those were both, 185 was actually not moved forward because the wrong policy was posted for the public, and so we held off on that until the next meeting. But 185.3 governance committee was moved for first reading, and that just clarified the role of the committee. And then we had policies 186 and 186 Rule 1, the ad hoc committee procedures, had some additions and clarifications, and that was passed for first reading. And then we had personnel recommendations, and that was it for our February 25th meeting. Then we had a meeting on March 10th, and we had first reading policies, communicable diseases, and these were all, getting prepared for what we're all going through right now, communicable diseases, pandemic preparedness. These were passed for first reading. An anti-bullying policy was passed for first reading. And then we passed for first reading a social media guidelines for staff policy. And a professional, policy 528, professional adult-student boundaries was passed for first reading. Policy 352, field trips, excursions, and student travel was passed for first reading with some modifications on our old field trip policy. We had policy 185 came back to us in March for standing board committees, and that was moved on for first reading. Policy 185.1, Planning and Budget Committee, was passed for first reading with clarification of the duties of that committee. And 185.2, Oversight and Finance Committee, same thing, just clarification of the duties, was passed for first reading. And then we had, policy 221, recruitment and appointment of superintendent, with some revisions on that policy, was approved for first reading. The next item was a consent list, all for second reading policies, and they all moved forward through second reading with no additional changes. Policy 162, new board member orientation. Policy 162, Rule 1, new board member orientation. Policy 165.1, conflict of interest. Policy 171.1, notification of board meetings. And policy 182, our quorum policy. Policy 185.3, the governance committee policy. And policy 186 and 186 Rule 1, our ad hoc advisory committee policies. Following that, we just had personnel matters approved and recommended to the full board, and that was it. I'm not sure right now when our next meeting will be. I have to wait and see when the next board meeting, full board meeting will be. That's it. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. You're quite busy. We are at the superintendent search update. There's two parts to this. We've been working with WSB. John Wong's been in contact with them. Sue and her team have been working on some things. But I also want to let the public know this. With this coronavirus, we made a commitment to the community that we would have listening sessions, and we would try to cover each of the different school districts. We obviously we're not going to be able to do that in a timely manner, so we may be looking at May or June before we can actually get community input. We felt as a board that the survey was not the right way to get community input, and we definitely want the community to be involved in this process. So this is a report only as to where we are today, but I want the community to know that the commitment is there, that we are going to make sure you're involved in the process. It will delay, obviously, the hiring of a superintendent for us to fulfill that commitment, but that's a commitment I think we owe the community. So having said that, John, you want to give an update first on the WASB, where we're at with them?
Yes. For those that were not in attendance, on March 10th, the board had a listening session for two firms, WASB and Ray and Associates, and they came to the board meeting and presented their proposal to our district as far as helping us with the search process. At the end of that meeting, and we had a discussion regarding their processes, even though Ray and Associates would have been free to us with the exception of expenses, some additional expenses which would have been relatively minor. I don't think that any of us, we didn't feel as though that was going to be the best route to go. We followed up with WASB. They said they would be very flexible as far as how we could work with them. And so we began the process. In the meantime, we actually we posted through WeCan our application for, or I should say our job posting for the superintendent to begin the search. WASB came back with a letter dated the 23rd of March, indicating that they were uncomfortable with the beginning that we actually posted this on WeCan. They would like to have all correspondences and all applications go directly through their website. I had a very good conversation. I reached out to Dan Nearad, the WASB representative that presented it to us, and he and I had a good conversation last week about this, and we followed up. I spoke to him yesterday. I also had multiple conversations with various people, including Sue Green and Joanne Armstrong, to get a better feel for where we are in the overall process. Dan was very understanding about our concerns and where they come from. And he said that basically when he came back to me and he said, John, it comes down to one of two things. One, we allow them to do the search and have all the applications go through their site. We would provide them all the contact information for the applicants off of the WeCan site that we have out there already, which I'm very happy to announce that there are seven applicants, and which I think is great. 6 of them are from around the area, meaning Illinois and Wisconsin, and there's one from Maine, which I thought was kind of strange. But we would have to direct those individuals, if we wanted to go to the WASB website, if we allow them to do the full search itself. They would be flexible in allowing us to be involved on some things. And I told Dan, I said, when you say flexible, you said that before, and then you came back to us with the idea that you needed to begin through the application process. He understands that, and I think that they'd be willing to work through that, but my feeling is the application piece is a big piece of it. The second option would be we do the search and we provide ancillary, or that we get ancillary benefits from them on various things. And I think that in speaking to Joanne yesterday, who I feel has a very good grasp on the hiring process, which she should, that's her area, I had 2 questions for her. One was her ability and the staff's ability to handle the workload as far as for a search, knowing that there is the different phases of this. that we've already begun. And she feels very confident that they could do that. But then I also posed the question to her, which she was very honest about, was under the circumstances in today's world, knowing that all of us, I wouldn't say we don't have a full workload, but the workload's a lot different today than what it would be if it were to be in August or September during budget time. And that was my concern is that if Joanne is distracted in other areas, which are very important to her job, would she be able to do that? And her honest answer was no, she would not. She would not have the staff would not have the time and commitment to be able to do that. So that brings us back, I guess, to the focal point, and Jeff and I talked about this yesterday as well, or today it might have been, in regards to the focus groups. That's one of the key sticking points in this, and I think it's going to be very difficult under the current circumstances to continue the search, and as Jeff had mentioned, this likely would need to be postponed for a period of time here. That does leave us into the situation whereby we do have applicants out there, and do we begin the process? But I think even, I don't know, I guess the difficulty I see with this is really coming up with what the community is looking for in the next superintendent and what we're looking for as far as their input. So I don't know if it provides an update as far as what we have. I told WASB that we would touch base with them tomorrow if this is more informative. I don't know if anybody has any comments. I know initially we said that we would hire them, but it would be on a limited basis or as far as with the flexibility. So we need to make a decision on that.
Before Sue goes, John, I would anticipate, because this is not a question and answer, this is just an update,
Right.
that the board will be getting together either on April 7th or the 14th to have a more extensive flow of questions and where do we want to go from here. So that'll take place either on the 7th or the 14th. So Sue, you want to kind of give your perspective where you're at?
Yeah, I have spent a lot of time talking to Joanne about this, and I do have confidence that she is going to be a huge asset in what we're able to do. I would love to be able to work with WASB. Thank you. To have them help with some of the planning and facilitation of the public and staff input forums. Working in collaboration with them, I think we could get that done. We could look at a couple different avenues to proceed with that when we are allowed to do that in a public setting. They could help us with interviews, preparation of questions and format. They could help us with background search. They could help us with initial interviews that could be done online. Joanne and I feel like we could work on background search and initial interviews online, independent of WASB as well. So we've looked at a lot of options. The closing is April 30th. We do have, we still have a nice timeline. We have the month of May. We are waiting to see what we will be allowed to participate in a public format. So a lot of it is wait and see.
Okay, I have a question. Is that okay? A couple of them, actually.
Well, actually, Kyle, I'm postponing any questions and comments till the April 7th or 14th meeting, but I will allow you to go ahead.
Well, I mean, because I don't know because now we've just brought up the possibility of postponing a superintendent search, and so now I'm worried it's out there on YouTube. So I guess I'm just worried about what does that mean? Like, so are you saying that talking about postponing and doing it this year as far as July 1st? Because we're going to get a lot of questions about it. We're going to get emails. So, and then April 7th is still a little bit away. So, I mean, I need to know, what does that mean?
Go ahead.
Kyle, just a clarification.
Yeah.
The posting is up through April 30th. We are postponing nothing. We just have to be conscientious of what we can do in a public forum because of the national crisis and our,
Right.
order of safety at home. So we just have to be cautious and see what we can do. And that's why Joanne and I were looking at some of the steps that we can be doing now that have nothing to do with the public forum. And that would be background searches, maybe asking the candidates to respond to an online interview, and we could get representation from the public, from staff, to be a part of listening to those online interviews. So nothing is postponed. Sorry if I misled.
Okay.
That's probably. Kyle, that's probably my mistake. I said postpone. We can't do the public forum, which we originally thought we could do in April. So we're not stopping the process, but we're also
Right.
going to make sure
But
we
that-
get public input on it. So, John?
And I understand that, but then the word postpone was thrown out there, and I wanted to clear up any misconception about what was going to be happening, what that means.
Kyle,
You can spank
So
me.
thank you for that clarification.
Kyle,
I
I'm,
still do have some more concerns about what's happening, but I guess we'll talk about them on April 7th.
okay. Kyle, I apologize. I might have said postpone. I did not mean that. But yes, we are continuing to work through the process. I guess one comment that I would have is if Sue and Joanne, having the knowledge that they do in regards to the process itself, and I think that there's a number of us on the board that have gone through this, unfortunately, one, maybe two times. Would there be any benefit in having a conversation with Dan Nearad and or Guy Levette to discuss what you're able to do, and so that we're not going back and forth, and every time we do something that we're running into a conflict with them? I mean,
Well,
I think that,
I guess, and I'm sorry that I keep going, but my concern is we really decided as a board that WASB was going to handle this for us. I would feel more comfortable with asking the candidates to apply through WASB because I'm thinking about optics to this, and it's a week away, right? So April 7th is a long time for more candidates to be applying and everything, to have to backtrack to do this. I'm worried about the optics of people in the district handling the applications and touching them. I don't think anybody would do anything dishonest. I'm looking at the optics of what we've been through in past superintendent searches. I think the best thing to do is to let WASB handle it all and bring us the applications when the window closes, and not get involved before then. And I think that that's what the board decided to do, to let WASB handle it, right?
the board did agree to have WASB come in and handle it, but we also talked about they talked about flexibility. So we had talked about having us being partially involved in the process, and that's why we posted the We Can application, or we posting on We Can, which started the ball rolling. Unfortunately, there was some miscommunication there. Joanne, you had something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify with the We Can that we have every intention and capability to give every board member and WASB access to the online applications. It isn't my office or Sue Green giving you the information we want you to have. We are going to give access to that entire application, to that vacancy announcement, where you would see their transcripts, their letters, their answers to the questions, their applications, resumes, anything that they have uploaded in response to our posting, which did include questions that they had to answer. Everyone would have access to that. We would do that once the vacancy closed. But you would
and I'm not
see
contesting that point. I just feel like a decision was made without a full board discussion about what it looks like. And that's my concern, is that it seems like a plan has been made about what the district is going to do, what WASB is going to do, when the last action we took was just to talk to WASB and approve them to help us in the search. We never had a board discussion about what that looks like, but it seems to me like that decision has already been made, and I have a problem with that. I mean, this is the third superintendent search I've been on, not including an interim. I'd like to maybe get one right, and not only that, I want to make sure that the process is squeaky clean so that that new superintendent doesn't has as little opposition to a search process as possible. I'm thinking about it from all angles. I want to set this new superintendent up for success in every way we can. And again, I go back, I feel like a decision has been made without really a full board discussion.
Can I ask a question?
Well, Kyle, I'm confused because we got a letter from WSB which was complete opposite of what, and I wasn't at the meeting, what was presented to the board. So we're trying to find out from the process of, from what the WSA presented to you and those that were there what changed and what are we don't really know what the rules are for the WASB because they changed if you saw the letter. So we haven't made a decision not to use them, but unlike you, I don't think I need to make a decision by tomorrow. I need to make the right decision, and that means the board needs to sit down together in a session where we can have a back and forth as to what is the WSAB really offering us, and are they going to work with us, and what do we really want to do? So I'm not discounting what you're saying, but I haven't, Shirley, and the board hasn't made a decision as to what we're doing. We're still trying to figure out what is the WSAB actually offering, because their letter contradicted what they presented. That's the opinion I got from other people on the board. So we have not made a decision, and I'm going to stick with what I'm saying. We'll either meet on the 7th or the 14th and iron it out. But no decision has been made on anything. Go ahead, Sue.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that what you said, Jeff. The board also agreed to that Joanne would do that weekend posting, and the board contributed the attributes and the characteristics, and they helped to design that posting. So nobody has done anything outside of what was agreed upon with the board and with WASB. We, however, have considered, because we are now under this national crisis, we did get a letter from WASB kind of changing what the agreement was. So we started to have some exploration. What are we capable of doing in the entire process? That's all we've done to this date, is discussion on what we are able to do, what the timeline looks like for all of us. It's just been discussion.
Could I ask a question, please, Jeff? So I'm not sure if I understand what WASB changed their mind on. Are we saying because they want the applications to come through them, that's changing their mind, or was there something else?
They basically came back with a letter that said that they're unwilling to go through any of the process if they're not able, if the applications don't go through their WSB website.
Okay, I think that was more of a misunderstanding.
Right, I would
Not
agree.
really them changing their mind. So I'd like to say that I think that we misunderstood that would be where they start, and then we will decide what we do and what they do after
Right.
that. They had that, the idea that they would be doing the advertising, and we didn't know they had that idea. So I don't think it's really really a changing mind. So I want to know, from your conversation with him, did he say that unless we let them do the advertising and have the application come through them, unless we do that, they are going to back out?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. So how complicated would it be to have our 7 applicants say, all right, we'll go through their website?
That's just we can provide them. I told Dan there's 1 of 2 ways we can do this. One, we can contact the applicants, which I think they would prefer, provide them the information and say that we need to direct them directly to the WSB website or have them do it for us. So that's one option. We could do it that way. And that way it would be, they would maintain control that way, I guess, of the application process. So.
Okay. And then to Kyle's other concern, Joanne, can the board go on right now and look at these applications out of curiosity, see who's applied? If we can do it later, could we do it now? And then we could also talk to WASB about, or talk to the candidates about applying through WASB.
That would be a conversation that we can have. I mean, we can grant access at any point, but at this time, we do not feel it's appropriate to have people out looking at those applications before it closes. We don't want to have a bunch of hands in the mix, as it's still an application period, and giving undue time to candidates who have already applied, and people can become overzealous and start making contacts and things. So to be fair to all applicants, we had made a decision, Sue and I had I'd spoke with John and Jeff as well, to say this shouldn't be opened up for people to view until we have all the applicants there. But we do have that ability to do that if that was a decision that's made as we go down this path.
Okay, so maybe we could talk about that on the 7th.
Right.
Because this is a board hiring process.
Mr. President, I have Stephanie on my phone because she got dropped off the other one and she has something to say. She has a question or comment.
So I'm having a hard time hearing what Joanne just said. Did she just say that it's inappropriate for us to look at the weekend applicants at this time?
I said that we were going to not open that up at this point until it's closed on the April 30th. Then everybody would be given access to look at those applicants because we didn't want unnecessary review and contact established with the candidates before all applicants had the opportunity to apply.
So one last thing, Jeff.
I don't know what the slide is. I'm just going to suggest that we talk about that on the 7th or 14th, whenever, because that should be a board decision. This is our search, our employee.
It is, but we also need to make sure we maintain integrity through the whole process. And that'll be the board discussion. And like I say, this was an update as to where we are today. It's not a final. There's no set guideline right now. This was just as to what's been going on with the letter from WCB, from the presentation that you guys had on March, whatever it was when I was on
10th.
vacation, and what the superintendent's office has looked at as what they might be able to do to help support it. So that's all we're at today. The wild card is this coronavirus, which is going to really slow down the public input. And the bottom line also is you have a new board coming on in 2 weeks. I'm guessing they'll want to have some input into the process as well. So let's just be a little open-minded. Nothing's going to change between now and next Tuesday as far as getting candidates that are going to apply and making any decisions before that point. So, but all your points are well taken. I appreciate it. It means you're concerned and you care, and we all care about this community. So I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. I would welcome a motion, or does anybody want anything pulled off the consent agenda?
I'll move.
I move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Consent agenda
Aye.
passes. We are now at the business agenda action items. Sue Green's going to give us an ongoing educational programming during school closure. I have had contact with Sue throughout this process. I know many have been anxious as to where are we at. We took the approach of let's be prudent and move forward when we had all the information from DPI and the WSAB that's been working with us to make it come out correct. And so Sue is going to give us an update as to where we are and really your permission as to moving forward. So, oh, you moved on me. I don't know if you're on YouTube up there or not. Do you show up?
Yes, we have, that's all the extra cameras we have now.
Well, there's no secrets in this place. Okay, so it's up to you, Sue.
Sorry to
Okay.
interrupt, but can we speak up? I really can't hardly hear anybody right now. Sorry.
Thank you, and Peg Mellencamp will be assisting with this presentation. I would like to begin with some information as it relates to the ongoing educational programming during the school closure regarding the waiver information. And I will be reading a lot to you. I apologize for that. I want to make sure that I do not say anything incorrectly or I don't miss any important components. On the waiver information, we're carefully following the directions regarding the public schools process for waiver during this period of school closure. Several of us participated in a webinar on March 26, which provided the most current information of the waiver Wisconsin waiver process. The main items that can be considered for waiver through DPI include instructional hours and days, high school credits for graduation, the EE process, that is the educator effectiveness process for teachers, professional staff, and administrators, the civics exam, and other items covered under Chapter 115 through 121. There is a specific process to request a waiver, including a public hearing with the school board process. We could do this now, However, we do not yet have full knowledge of the duration of school closure, the number of days, and that would be missed during this current school closure. We have been advised by DPI and WASB to wait, to be patient and to wait. There is a strong likelihood that DPI will provide a blanket waiver in the next few weeks. This would be for all schools in Wisconsin. Waiting will serve us better. We will continue to plan and be prepared to follow the process at the district level for a waiver, carefully watching the calendar and timelines. There could be some other items that we would decide through the board process regarding our district policy for graduation, and those will be the two pieces of personal finance class and the American democracy class. Those are required only by our district under board policy for graduation. We are gathering the information right now at the high school, how many students could be affected in graduation if they have not yet completed those classes, and what our plan looks like to be able to include those classes in this next phase of educational programming. So I wanted to share that information first. And then I'm going to give a little bit of the history that really is important for us to understand why we are at where we are at this point in time. Right now, we are under our spring break, and I'd just like to clarify our history to this date. The governor issued a statewide closure for all schools late in the afternoon on Friday, March 13th. Our team met, including Board Vice President John Wong, to make the decision to close our school buildings effective Monday, March 16th to all students. Staff were allowed to come into the buildings from 8 until 12 noon to get any essential items. Our decision to close on Monday included the time frame at that time, which was 2 weeks of instructional time and 1 week of spring break. Our key priorities were safety and well-being of our students, their families, and our staff during that time period. Our team met for 7 hours on Saturday, March 14th, to flesh out the details of a plan regarding educational programming, providing food for our students during the 3-week period and other needs, including cleaning the buildings, getting medications and other essential provisions to students and families, preparing communications for families and staff, addressing travel and related communications for return to school after the spring break, travel, canceling a number of school activities that were scheduled to occur during that time period, and addressing voting at our school sites on April 7th with a return date scheduled for April 6th. We met that day with the city manager and other members from her office to discuss that, as well as several other matters and issues with the city. We also met that day with several representatives of the BEA to discuss our planning for educational programming during this period. It was decided that for the 2-week period of time, it was best to deliver a program of resources, materials, and directions to supplement, enrich, and support ongoing educational opportunities and to engage and maintain students in learning. We were not in a position to provide a complete manner of virtual school or online learning for credit for the 2-week period due to the provision of devices for all students in their homes and or the lack of knowledge of access to the internet in all homes. And this was looked at for all grade levels. In the 2-week time period since March 13th, and please remember, it's really just been 2 weeks. It's felt like an awfully long. We're into the 3rd week, but it really has been a short period of time that feels like a very long period of time for everyone. Things have changed significantly. Throughout our decision-making, we have followed the direction of DPI, the Wisconsin Governor's Office, the Rock County Health Department, and the National Center for Disease Control. In Wisconsin, we are currently under the Governor's Order Number 12, which is being called Safer at Home. This order is mandated right now through April 24th, keeping our schools closed until at least that date. The White House has announced another order that may affect Wisconsin school closure through the end of April. However, that has not yet been formally shared with us through the governor's office. Therefore, like most other school districts in Wisconsin, we are now faced with a lengthier school closure, and we are ready to move to Phase 2 for educational programming, and that is what we are sharing with you tonight. We have developed a School District of Beloit framework for distance learning to go into effect on Monday, April 6th, which is our scheduled return after the spring break. We have developed this plan in full accordance with our district governance regulations from DPI and the governor's office. The plan was developed by analyzing the feedback from all professional staff on the provisions of learning during the first 2-week period, through discussions with all building principals, through discussions with BEA representatives and board representatives, and with thorough analysis of all options and resources we have available at each level, the elementary, the intermediate, the high school, and BLA. Our first priority in planning is given to the high school seniors to ensure their readiness for graduation. Our second priority is to all high school students because of credit acquisition. Our plan reflects those priorities. The framework for distance learning provides direction for educational programming specific to each level in a blended learning model, meaning that we offer many educational activities and programs that teachers have utilized in these last 2 weeks of school closure. We have identified the many resources, tools, instructional materials, and methods that are being used now and that can be used moving forward. This framework offers a consistency throughout the schools of learning engagement for all students at each level. This framework provides essential understandings and expectations to our professional staff and our administrators. This framework is a bigger umbrella that will utilize a myriad of online learning, virtual learning, and the use of web-based technology, as well as other platforms to deliver the curriculum to our students. It is comprehensive, and it will serve our students well during this unprecedented time of national crisis. This plan will remain in effect through the end of the school year, being delivered in person if and when we return to our school sites for the remainder of this year for any amount of time. I will ask Peg to now share the details of this framework.
And you're receiving a copy of the draft. And as Sue mentioned, we've had lots of input from principals and starting to work through some staff input. So this will change. We have several meetings scheduled again tomorrow to really refine this. So this is our latest version. It's broken into 3 portions. We'll start with the 9th through 12th grade, and it will look different at Beloit Memorial than it will at BLA because the programs are quite different. The majority of what you're seeing right now is what we've discussed with Beloit Memorial High School. Scroll down to the staff expectations and essential understandings. And here's where we wanted to clearly define what administrators will be doing during this period as far as communicating with staff and collecting information. And then specifically, what are certified staff responsible for during this time? How will we work with families and students to provide support? And some of that is keeping a communication log. And we recognize that our staff are reaching out continuously and have been since the very beginning to communicate with their students and their families. And they're keeping track of that. And once we identify which students we have not been able to reach, we will work with student service staff and try to make that contact, every effort to contact families. So there's no punitive part for our staff in this. We're asking staff to hold office hours, 2 hours daily, but there's flexibility because we know everyone has a different home situation and may have children that they're taking care of, and homeschooling and providing some of that support for their own children. So 2 hours, they would share this information with their administration team, and it could be an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon. They would set that up, and after that first week, it might change depending on when they find their students needing the most support. And we want to provide that flexibility. They will share those office hours with the students and families as well. They'll be providing feedback on the student work. Second semester grades, and this is where some of the draft language we're still working on. Term 3, actually, I'm going to hold off on talking about grades until we get through this a little bit more, so I will pause on that. But the work that the teachers will be doing that week of April 6th, will be identifying 4 or 5 essential understandings or standards and skills that students, that they are going to be providing that instruction around. Because the expectation would be that 2.5 to 3 hours maximum for high school age students to be engaged in learning. Because a lot of our students are also caring for siblings, and we wanted that to be a manageable and not overwhelming time for our students and families. We're also asking staff to participate in virtual meetings, staff meetings, PLCs as requested by their building administrators. Staff will be utilizing multiple communication tools such as email, Google Classroom, Google Meets, Zoom for educational purposes only. So we'll also be providing some professional development because some of our staff, some of these platforms are new to them, so we are prepared to offer that support and professional development. Next, you'll see a timeline, and this timeline is consistent across all grade levels. Some of the details are a little bit different. But starting April 6th through 9th, professional staff would use that week to prepare for that instruction. They'd be working through identifying what are those key components that they're going to teach in that course for the remainder of the school year, given the time frame that we have, not only for the school year, the terms 4 being shortened by several weeks, but also what modifications do they need for time frame of classes. Normally, they would have students in class 60 to 90 minutes, and now the expectation would be around 20 to 30 minutes daily. April 13th would be resuming school with students. The 13th through the 17th, they wouldn't start new learning during this time. It would be the completion of any outstanding work from term 3, so that students would have that opportunity to complete the coursework, and then term 3 at the high school would be graded. Students would get credit, grades would be calculated at the end of that time, and it would go toward their GPA. At that time, once term 3 is closed out, their GPA would kind of be frozen for term 4. The pass-fail would not impact their GPA positively or negatively, but they would still get credit for those credit-bearing courses. Term 4 would run April 20th through June 5th, with the exception that our seniors would need to complete and turn in all coursework by June 3rd, so that we have several days when we're looking at decisions regarding graduation. And like Sue mentioned, this framework that we're proposing, whether we come back in May or don't, this will remain in effect for the entirety. Then we've captured our staff across all grade levels shared platforms and ways that they are reaching their students, and some of those instructional programs that they're also using. So we captured just an example here of the different means of communication platforms, what platforms they could use for instructional support, and then also those distance learning programs. These are in addition to the website. If you go to the School District of Beloit website, teachers have been sharing. The school leadership team has put together a fantastic website that will house our distance learning options for students to continue to explore, and it's something that we will maintain after all of this is over. It's just a great repository of high-quality instructional resources. We are working with building principals. Right now, our intermediate and elementary teams are working together, and as well as the high school, to provide some guidance for grading and student work completion. And we've just drafted a few of the outlines I talked before, that the third quarter grades would be graded, fourth term grades would be pass-fail. And we will not be holding end of semester or end of term exams during this time. The high school team is working through what would attendance look like? Do we take attendance in some shape or form? What would we consider pass, fail? What is that criterion? We're really looking for the high school team, department chairs, and teacher guidance on defining that. That's not something as a district that we're going to mandate. We're not going to say which standards need to be taught per course. We're going to leave that to the experts in their building. Our goal is to provide this overall framework, and then we'll communicate out this framework to our staff, to our parents, to the community, and then each building will go into more detail and share further information with their families and students. The intermediate framework is very similar to what we saw at the high school. Oh, Sue, did you want to talk about before I go into that?
Just a little bit.
Yep.
Thank you.
I remember.
One thing that we wanted to share with board members is that we are gathering specific information of the needs that some of our teachers at the high school have shared with us, and this, at this point, applies only to the high school and BLA because of the credit situation and having seniors. There are some teachers, we think very small numbers, that feel that they may need to enter their building to get some devices and instructional materials to carry out this delivery of the curriculum. So we will be working with Joanne and with Sean to find a window to allow them, those who want to return to the building. They are not expected to, but those who are saying, I really need something to do this the best that I can, and they feel it's essential, that Sean and Joanne would ensure that that would be done in a safe manner for all involved. And we want you to know that this is in complete compliance with the governor's current order number 12, defining that you can go into your buildings and obtain essential items for instruction, whether you are the instructor or the student. So we have checked out and it is in compliance. At this point, we are looking at that possibility for our teachers and other professional staff only for a very short window. We are gathering the student information. At this point, it's coming down to the need for devices, and we are looking at ways that, what will that number look like? Who are those students? How can we get that device in their hands? We are also considering for those students that are taking musical classes that would involve their instruments, how do we also make sure that if their instrument is at the high school, we would be able to safely get that to them? And we, again, it's under that order of what is essential, and we would do it with all safety measures in place. We have not made a decision on students yet at this time, just to share that with you. And again, it's only the high school level.
As I move into talking about the intermediate, I do want to point out that at all levels, when we talk about professional staff, we're not only talking about classroom teachers, we're talking about our support areas, our special ed, our EL teachers, our special ed teachers, our pupil service staff, and Missy Beavers has been working closely with them to discuss what will those supports look like in this distance learning framework that we have. So those are conversations that we continue to have, and she and her team have a plan for that. Just to give you an example, we have speech therapists who are doing Zoom meetings or Google Hangout, and they're providing that therapy for students in that manner. So it's the same essential understandings and expectations for our intermediate school. And again, the intermediate and the elementary will change as well as we continue those conversations tomorrow with the principals. One of the differences, our Our students will receive a term 3 grade, a letter grade. They'll have that same timeline, that same grace period. We need to make decisions yet about what that term 4 would look like as far as grades and expectations there. So that's our next phase of conversation with them. They've also identified many of the same platforms and tools for communicating with families. They are surveying and finding out what devices and internet access that students have. So that's happening at all levels right now, and also making sure that teachers have access to what they need to, and what would that instruction. The instructional hour recommendations vary at each level. We talked about 2.5 to 3 hours maximum for high school students to be engaged in learning. That's 1.5 to 2 hours for our intermediate school, and then our primary school is about 1 hour to 1 hour, an hour and a half maximum engaged learning time for our littles.
Finalizing our meetings tomorrow with our principals who are working with their staff members with the plan. Our next step tomorrow would be to send out the letter to all families regarding the plan and what the role of the family would be to support this learning for their children. We will share this information in our typical format of communication, but to ensure that we are able to meet that communication with all families, we are also going to be sending the same information out through U.S. Post as well. So we're working on that tomorrow, too. It will also be, as usual, on our webpage, but we want to meet all families and make sure that information is out for everyone. Along with that, in the first 2 to 3 days that teachers begin instruction, we are asking them to forward the names and what contact information they have for any families that are not responding or connecting to our efforts to share the curriculum with them. And then our central office people with student services will be finding another way to communicate with those families. So we do not want anyone to fall through the cracks. We're looking at how to get devices in all hands as needed, depending on what they're going to use. And then the other component would be that we are also looking to make sure that all families and students have the knowledge of how they can connect to the internet. There are a lot of free possibilities out there. We just heard of a new one that is available through some of the phone services, that they are offering some additional services as well. So we're going to get that information out. We are looking at providing whatever degree we can, those hotspots that others could also tap into the internet service if they do not have it directly in their home. So we are looking at that piece. We do not want any students to not have access to the educational programming.
And then I'd just like to remind that we did, this week, I think starting Thursday, they should start showing up in homes. We did share 2 weeks' worth of instructional support materials, grade level materials that for our 4K through 5th grade students that covers ELA, math, science, and social studies. So those will be sent out. They've already been dropped in the mail or will be tomorrow.
They were picked up yesterday, and they were inserting them into, it's 2,941 students, and they are inserting all the packets and mailing them out. They will be in the mail at the end of the day. Well, tomorrow morning, they'll go out and be going first class, so they should be delivered to all our families by the end of the week.
Some questions and feedback.
First of all, thank you for all the work you're putting in on this. I think that, a lot of us have been I know it's a lot of work on your ends as far as trying to figure out the logistics of this. And I really, really applaud you on having the schools take ownership in this. And I think that's a great thing that you've done there. One thing that I'd be curious about, and it's something as well, just so that we can kind of, I guess, keep track of it, and I'm guessing, or perhaps you've already thought of this, is perhaps a periodic update to find out the participation rate. on an ongoing basis and keeping us informed. And I think keeping the public informed, because I think creating accountability, this comes down to maybe there is some family accountability here. We're doing everything we can to provide education to your children. If we've done everything we can, including postal, email, text, smoke signal, whatever, we're doing everything we possibly can. So we can't look in the eyes of the public as we're not putting forth a good effort there. So I think that would be, to me, it would be valuable to know that, the participation rate. And that's something I think each teacher could probably easily do on a weekly basis or however often they feel can be justified there.
And that is part of that communication log and work that they're turning into building principles. So it would be easy for us to pull that together into a report to share out.
I'm going to, because we've got 3 on the phone, and I know there's a little bit of delay on the YouTube, so I'm going to go Kyle, Megan, Stephanie, if you want to ask or comment. So Kyle, I'm going to start with you. Do you have something you want to ask or add?
Yeah, all those platforms are really great, but having been doing the virtual teaching now for 2 weeks, I think one of the things to be cognizant of is having like a building or trying to narrow it down to 1 or 2, because I think it'd be very difficult for families if this classroom teacher is using this platform for learning, and then, one of their other children's teachers is using a different one. So trying to kind of make everything as user-friendly for families as possible and narrowing it down a little bit is my only concern, or suggestion, I should say.
And that was something that our teams did talk quite a bit about, and from a district perspective, I don't feel comfortable telling each teacher what platform they must use, because some of this is new learning for staff as well, and I think whatever means. But we can provide parent support. There's some great materials that are being shared just daily through different instructional groups that are providing not only teacher tutorials, but also for families, and that's something that we will make sure that we share out and as well with our families so that they understand the platforms. Our kids catch on to things much quicker than maybe you or I do, so.
Way faster than me, I know that. Kyle, do you have any follow-up before I move to Megan?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Megan, do you have anything you want to add or ask?
Yeah, it was a little hard for me to hear the whole presentation, so I'll just take a look at it more thoroughly on YouTube because there was kind of a delay later, and email any questions. But I just wanted to say, from what I heard, great work. In Whitewater, our directive was just use the platform that you're comfortable with. So it sounds like across the board, Kyle, I actually thought the same thing at first too, but now that I'm kind of seeing it play out, I think it's fine. I think kids are, I think as long as teachers are using platforms that they're comfortable with and that they can comfortably kind of coach their students in, that's probably fine. I just want to echo also what John said about just making sure that, when we come, it sounds, and I feel confident that we're doing this. I just want us to be able to say to our community, we obviously put our kids first here. We did our due diligence and supported our teachers as well, because this is just an unprecedented situation. The only right way there is to do this is what you guys are doing, which is just putting kids and teachers first, and that's all we can do. So if I see anything more specific, is it all right for me to email?
Yes, absolutely.
I apologize for the technology. You were kind of coming in and out, so I apologize for that. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. Stephanie, you have anything you want to ask or comment on? Why do you keep looking up, by the way? Keep looking up when I ask that.
Stephanie, do you have anything you want to ask for question or comment on?
I'm having just a hard time hearing except for you right now and Sue. So I think what I'll have to do, but thank you for asking, is I'm going to have to, and I'm having a hard time getting the YouTube up and running as well. So no, not at this time, but if I do after I do some review of YouTube and stuff, perhaps then, okay? Thank you, though.
All right, thank you, Stephanie.
Pam or Wendy? Wendy?
I guess my only question would be, especially for those Spanish-speaking families that are out there, have you guys explored these tutorials in Spanish in a way to possibly help get them? I know that a lot of them are very low educated and know very little. I'm sure the kids probably will know more than they will, but tutorials for those younger ones, so they can help get their kids engaged.
Right now, we do have Tony Bosco looking at all of those needs, and hopefully in the next day or two, we will have some of that in better shape. It is absolutely being looked at.
And again, thank you, because I know this is something that came about really quick, and you guys have put a lot of effort and work into this, so thank you.
Pam, you want to comment?
No, I just also want to thank you very much, and I'm going to review it again tomorrow, and if I have any questions, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo it as well. I mean, I know there's been a lot of pressure from the outside to jump, and I never want to be the first one off the bridge until I see John Wong safely swimming away. So I do applaud you for being patient. I know the pressure was on, and we've had communication, and you've done a really nice approach, slow, steady, and with your communication to Madison and the right people to make sure we're doing it the right way. I think Beloit is a leader in a lot of different ways that I don't think we get credit for. I do think we do need to, Sue, if I'm correct, we're going to have to waive the grading policy for you to move forward. Am I correct on that or not? Because Rob had a question today about, and I see it's in here that the grading policy's listed to go to the pass-fail. Do we need to waive that or not?
I am thinking that yes, we should, because for the fourth quarter only, we would be at the high school level, especially changing from the grade level, or excuse me, the letter grades to the pass-fail, and we probably should have the board approve that.
And there might be a semester, a second semester course here and there. It's not a blanket, those are the discussions that we're still having, that some students might receive a pass-fail for a semester, for second semester for a course. We will clearly define and communicate all of that out as we have those decisions, but that would give us the freedom, if you were to waive that, to go ahead and make those decisions.
That would be a temporary waiver to the end of this school year?
Yeah.
I would throw that out to the board if someone would make a motion to do that so they can proceed with this.
I'll make a motion that we waive the grading policy as necessary and at the discretion of the administration for the remainder of the school year.
Stephanie, you seconded? Is there any other discussion? Here,
Oh, Stephanie has something. Okay, go ahead, Stephanie.
Sorry, no, I just had a question. Are we making a motion to say that they can do pass-fail?
Yes, versus the traditional letter grade. For this period only.
I can second it then, yeah.
She does second it.
boy, you are really right on that one, Stephanie. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion? Clarification? Read it back.
I just have that Pam moved to waive the grading policy as necessary and with discretion for the remainder of the 1920 school year.
As necessary and at the discretion of our administration for the remainder of this school year.
You said 1920. It scared me because you're thinking 2019, 2020, but you said 2019. Are you clarified? Are you okay so I can do the vote? Yes. All right. So all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you, Peg and Sue. That's fantastic work. Okay, we are at vehicle donations, and I have no idea who's doing that.
For the vehicles?
Yeah, it's on my agenda. It doesn't have your name on it, so I don't know.
Sorry, I was making sure that I had something else ready.
No, it says vehicle donations. Oh, you mean the thing.
Okay, sorry about that. We wanted to just recognize a donation that we received for 2 vehicles for our automotive program. One is a 2016 Chevy Malibu, valued at little over $6,500, and then a 2017 Chevy Silverado, valued at $20,800. And these were donated by Gosh Chevrolet and Wheeler Chevrolet. for our students to be working on and learn on more current vehicles so they can learn the electronics. And these were taken by Mitch Brewmeister and John Hayes as a donation. So we just wanted to have the board recognize those donations. I didn't think there'd be any objection to taking them.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion
Yes, Pam?
that we accept the donation from General Motors of a 2017 Chevy Silverado and a 2016 Chevy Malibu for the BMHS automotive program.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
We are now on the March 2020 Employment Recommendations Exhibit A and B. Why don't you just stay up there? What? I know, you get your steps in for the day, right?
Okay, so these personnel recommendations were actually set for the March 17th board meeting. They were also looked at policy and personnel. They approved it based on being able to have more conversation if necessary at the board level. So I am available to answer any questions.
I have a quick one. The school counselor, is that a guidance counselor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's replacing the employee who became a dean at Beloit Memorial, and he actually did start on Friday. They wanted to have a little transition time. So this was a new hire that was in the process from February.
Okay, and is this a salary amount in line with what others?
Yes, we did the comparables with our other district employees of what they meet on same years of experience and education level.
Okay.
And
Thank
that
you.
salary is prorated. So
Yes.
that's not what he's getting for this last half of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything to
I'll move
add?
approval of the personnel recommendations A and B.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
We are at Early College Credit Program Fall 2020 application. This item was inadvertently deleted from the original agenda. It didn't, right, Michelle, did not meet the 2-hour timeline. However, we felt since it's not an emergency, we could act on it, but if the board is uncomfortable acting on it and wants it removed until the next meeting, we can do that.
It did meet the 2 hours, it didn't meet 24.
24 hours, okay. So Rob thought we'd be okay doing it, but I don't want to put the board ever in a position that they don't feel comfortable in. If you're comfortable with it, we'll move forward.
Is there a rush for this?
I don't think so.
Well,
Is
I
there?
guess I would, if you don't mind, I do feel that there is some sense of urgency here because our students at Beloit Memorial, and you'll see on that document, there's almost 3 pages of names. In order for those students to sign up for classes through Black Hawk Tech and a variety of other area colleges, they can't sign up for courses until it's approved by the board. And right now, those applications students are registering for those, so the longer we wait, the more those classes, we have the potential of those classes filling up and our students not being able to get in them. This was something that was on a previous, we had it on a board agenda, but we had uploaded the wrong document. It had the summer document instead. So I do feel a sense of urgency for our students, if at all possible, to make a decision this evening.
Could I just ask a question? I see some of these classes are classes that with this new college program we've just started, students would be able to take if they were part of that. And so if they're here, the students are not part of that program then, correct? You know what I'm talking about? The college, the Black Hawk.
Some of the courses are held on-site in our facilities, and some of these are held off-site. but they still have to complete the enrollment process in order for us to continue to have those.
Right, but what's the name of the program, John? It's slipping my,
You mean the nursing one?
no, the name of the program that just got approved, and it was the
Oh, the
Collegiate Academy. Thank you. So the kids that are on here are not part of that Collegiate Academy.
Some might be, yes. So these courses, some do go toward the collegiate academies. This is the same program as it used to be called Youth Options.
Right, right.
Prior to that had been
I
called.
just wondered if anything on this list has changed because of the Collegiate Academy. Like,
What's
some of these
changed is
kids
the
might
number of
be.
students. So previous years, if you can remember, when I was here previously, our list was much, much shorter. And traditionally in the, what was teaching and learning budget, we set aside 95,000 and we didn't even come close to that.
Right.
Now we are exceeding that budget by almost each semester so that students are having these, it's a growing program. That's the only difference is the number of students who are now participating in these programs.
Okay, but just to be clear, if a kid is part of that program, the Collegiate Academy, they will appear on a list like this.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
So you're seeing students who are on those pathways for whether it be certification programs.
Okay.
Or for the associate's degree.
Okay.
They would all be on this list.
I'll make a motion because I see here that someone did go through it and verify that some of the classes were comparable and not covered and others were not comparable, and it looks,
The high school team does a really good job of.
yeah, it looks good. I'll make a motion that we approve this list of students for next semester, correct?
Correct, the fall semester.
Fall semester.
Second.
I have a question.
So I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, kind of a question. Is there a deadline when these courses have to be signed up for?
I don't have the dates for each institution. Now, I do know that Blackhawk Tech has extended when you can sign up for them because of the current, because of COVID-19, but it's not necessarily all a matter of when the deadline is, it's how quickly some of these courses fill up. is
Okay.
where our sense of urgency comes in.
And I was just asking the question because as I was going through the list, I guess it's self-serving because I have a son that's a junior and taking classes, and
Is it too late, is what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly, because he sent me a text because I said, did you sign up for these? And it says, clearly states on here, application deadline is April 15th. Applications and supporting material must be received by this date. And that also includes an essay.
So I would encourage him to contact his school counselor
Okay,
for more detailed information. Typically, Mitch or Emily's here this evening, but I said I would stand
Okay.
for them this evening, but they would be able to answer the specifics to reach out. So there still is time. We would just bring another list of approvals if that were the case.
okay. I think that'd be important to know because if other kids don't know that, I mean, I would assume they
You
have
can
the
find
same.
that out and communicate it out so that not just
Sure, right.
your
I agree.
child has that information, but everybody does.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And if there are other students that aren't aware of this, them being out of school is going to make it even more difficult for them to stay in the loop and to know these opportunities are coming up. So maybe an email to parents and students would be appropriate if that deadline is coming up.
Yeah, we can, I'll talk with Emily and Mitch and see how that might be best communicated. I do know that as they were compiling this list, there was a lot of information that was shared out several months ago about this, and that it's ongoing, that each semester this comes forward, and there's quite a bit of communication. So I will find out if that deadline has indeed moved, and if we can do another push for that.
Yeah, we certainly don't want any child.
It'll all hinge on that deadline.
Miss out on
that's
this.
been extended.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hey,
so,
can I just jump into something quick?
yeah, go right ahead.
Hey, so cool. So I think with board approval, we can waive that March 1st deadline, at least for Blackhawk Tech. It's just that the state sets the deadline for April 15th. We can't do anything about that. But if we as a board decided, due to the circumstances or whatever, to waive the March 1st deadline, which is when I think the paperwork was due, we could probably do that if we're interested in doing so. I missed about 70, or some of what was said, so I apologize if that was said already.
What would you think of that, Meg?
I don't have the document, I didn't have access to it, so I don't see what the language is right now to be able to make a response. What I can do is read what that says to see if it's March 1st as a deadline, that's already well past.
I thought she said March 15th.
She said March 1st. Today's March 31st, so it doesn't really matter if it's the 15th or not, so.
That's when they're available. That's not the deadline.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Megan was going with that, so.
Megan, you had mentioned a deadline of March 1st.
Yeah, so John, I think, so when I worked at BTC and I worked on this program, I think the high schools were given, so we gave the high school the deadline at the college of March 1st. The state deadline that's actually in the statute language, we could double check. If somebody wants to pull it up, or I could pull it up real quick, it's April 15th.
Right.
So
and-
I think, hang on a second. So I can pull up online really quick. It's statute 38, I think it's 3812, parent 1214. I think is what you want to look at. And there are established deadlines. I think the March 1st, so the March 1st and October 1st is what I'm thinking of. I think we can waive that as a board as long as the college says it's okay. So if you guys reach out to, UW Whitewater at Rock for ECCP and for Star College now at BTC and ask if they're okay with waiving the deadlines, we can do it, I believe, with board approval. But you can double check that. It's fine.
Megan, I'm looking at a document my son sent me in regards to this, and it has important dates. And the first one is March 1st, applications available online. The April 15th deadline is for the applications and supporting material. And then, so the March, I don't think that it was actually ever out there for March 1st as far as a deadline.
Which school is that?
Okay, yeah, so
That's
the
a high school.
statute, there's, what you'll want to double check is what the state statute says, and that's that 381214 statute. And it's always up, we can always waive stuff as a board as long as we just can't if the college says it's okay, then we're cool because they have to, it all goes back to WTCS or through the UW system if it's through UW Whitewater at Rock. So if we just had a date on there, if the colleges gave us the March 1st date, for the paperwork being due, we can always change that date. We just can't mess with the statute deadline, which I think is April 15th, but that's what you probably want to check.
Michelle has pulled up that statute. So Michelle, did you want to read that one line in there, please?
Sure. It says that the pupil notifies the school board of the school district in which the pupil resides of his or her intent to attend a technical college under this subsection by March 1st. If the pupil intends to enroll in the fall semester, and by October 1st, if the pupil intends to enroll in the spring semester. So they just have to notify the district, and then the district tells the board by March 1st.
So by statute, we're already past
Oh,
that
that's what I
date.
was just going to say. Per statute, we've already passed it. It's not April 15th, right? It's March 1st.
Right, the statute says March 1st.
Thank you.
For fall coursework.
Were you able to hear that, Megan?
So what I would do then is I would just reach out to, I would just quick email whoever your contact is at UW, Whitewater at Rock, and at BTC and say in lieu of the circumstances, and I don't want to speak for the board. If the board were willing to, we could just decide if it's possible that we're willing to or not. We could say that the board is willing to waive the March 1st deadline due to the circumstances. Would your colleges still honor those applications? And I will just tell you from past experiences, prior to this year, people have done that. So I think it's worth an ask if we're really concerned about it.
Can I ask, though, are we able to waive something that's a state statute? I don't think so. I'm understanding that March 1st.
You would have to talk to, it would have to go through WTCS. The other thing that we did for a student 2 years ago who missed the deadline, is we as a board could still opt to pay for that student, and we just wouldn't put them through that program. So we had a student 2 years ago who was a newcomer to the country who wanted to participate in a program at a local college, had missed the deadline because he was a newcomer to the country, and I believe a teacher brought it up, and the district opted to pay for the student. So if we have, I don't know if it's worth, I think, Pam, and forgive me if I didn't hear you right, were you saying maybe send out a communication, if anybody missed it? if we do decide to go that route and do like a catch-all, like, hey, last call,
Well-
we as a board could decide to approve those. It just wouldn't go through that program. There's no cost difference whatsoever.
But now we've got two different deadlines. I thought April 15th was the deadline, and that's why I said, let's make sure kids know that the deadline's coming up. But now it sounds like the state statute has a March 1st deadline, and the April 15th was a different deadline.
Well, and
So-
I would remind the
that might
board
be a
that we
moot
were
point.
we were in classes with students in front of us until March 13th, which is well past that date. So now to revise that, that's opening up a whole new. So I just want to share that we were still face-to-face with students at the deadline.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so what I would say is just like in our back pockets, like let's say we have a student complain that for whatever reason, like and it happens all the time, like if you guys are all cool, like we could always like approve something if there's an extenuating circumstance, but I agree, it's like March 1st, there's like different deadlines that float around. So if the statute language is March 1st, then we really have to abide by March 1st. But I think in like other extenuating circumstances like that previous one where somebody like wasn't even in the country yet, you know, we could still opt to, it just wouldn't go through that program. But that's, you know.
I feel like I'm completely missing something here. So all these kids that have signed up, we're beyond the deadline at this point, and
No, they have notified the district by the March 1st
Gotcha,
deadline
okay.
of their intent to participate in these programs pending board approval.
Right.
Once board approves, then they can register for the classes. Now, once they start that process, once you approve, they will go through the registration process. Some of them may not end up being enrolled because of conflicts. You know, right now, I think the total on that is a little over 103,000 out of the school leadership budget, and we have that money set aside, but that total will likely be less because of conflicts, because of courses filling up.
okay, so if they got their application in by March 1st, they're okay. They just have to pick out the courses.
And that's what you have, that's what you have in front of you. All the students on that sheet have met the deadline according to state statute.
Okay, we have,
One last
Go ahead,
question.
Pam.
This is totally separate than the Porter Scholar Program, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so just, I don't want to confuse any parents who might be watching. Porter Scholar Program, I don't know their deadlines, and I don't know the application process, but students interested in that should not be concerned about this March 1st deadline.
I believe those are, like you're saying, entirely
Okay,
separate.
thank you.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That motion passes. Okay, we are now on the first readings. First one is communicable disease.
Yeah, and if any board members have any suggestions for revisions on that, just email the committee, please.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. We are at,
Okay, and then we have move approval for first reading of policy 528, professional adult student boundaries for first reading, and waive the 30-day wait for it to come back for second reading so we can have it at our next meeting.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
And the next one, I'll make a motion that we pass for first reading, policy 352, field trips, excursions, and student travel, with waiving the 30-day wait for it to come back to the board.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
And then I will make a motion that we approve for first reading policy 185, standing board committees for first reading, and waiving the 30-day wait for it to come back to the board.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
I'll move that we that we pass for first reading policy 185.1, Planning and Budget Committee, and waive the 30-day wait for it to come back to the full board.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
I'll move that we approve for first reading policy 185.2, Oversight and Finance Committee policy, and waive the 30-day wait for it to come back to the first board. Come back to the full board, excuse me.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
I'll move that we approve for first reading policy 221, recruitment and appointment of superintendent, and waive the 30-day wait for it to come back to the full board for second reading.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes. Do you need to catch up on the seconds, Michelle?
Did anybody besides Wendy second?
John?
Which one did you second on, John? Do you remember?
J, K, and L.
Thank you.
Or K, K, L, M.
K-L-N-M. Thank you.
That's an airline, KLM. It is. Okay, we are now at the Ad hoc Hispanic Community Committee disbandment. Wendy, your recommendations?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move the disbandment of the his ad hoc Hispanic Community Committee, in which we did take the concerns, and we did bring a charge to the board, which was passed over to administration. Some things have been put into effect, and there's been postings out for the bilingual home liaison individuals in buildings, and there are several things that will continue to be ongoing, but are at where they should be in the administration's view and recommendation of our committee. Anything else?
No, so the motion is, I mean, you've done your due diligence and recommendations, and so the committee has met the guidelines that the board appointed to them, so I would take a second on that.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion?
I'll second.
I just have a
Comment?
question. First of all, I want to thank the committee. We formed this, goodness, what, March of 19, I believe. So I appreciate everyone that stepped up to work on these issues that were really incredibly important to the success of our students. And I wanted to know, how will this work be, not the work that the committee was doing, but how will we keep this flow going? Have we started up the Equality Committee yet? And will we be recruiting some of these members to be members of that committee?
The recommendation is to the, I've talked with Sue on it already, that the Hispanic community be included as part of the Equality Committee, and that we expand the Equality Committee to include everybody and not just certain groups of people. So I think this district needs to move closer where we are all one family. Yes, there are differences within our community, but we are all part of one school system and community, and the Equality Committee was formed, was it 2 years ago? Don Childs was here? No, we made an administration committee.
It was about a year ago.
And so I think we need to expand that and to include everybody into that. And it'll be the charge of the superintendent's office to decide how to reorganize that and find the right people that want to serve on that committee. And I would encourage that we reach out to find new people to be involved in these committees as well. So my 2 cents worth. So we have a... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Wendy.
I would just like to add that we did have that discussion on our committee at the last meeting when we did agree to the disbandment and that we had completed our charge, that some of the members that sat on the committee, or even just outreaching to some other people in the community to participate, in the equality. I know that Anthony Bosco shared with us that the administration has been working on how they want to invite, I think, members to join the Equality Committee, to have sections of our community, of our parents, of all of our population of the city of Beloit be involved. So I know that we did have a big discussion on that.
Thank you and your committee for the work. Appreciate it. We have a motion, a second, so all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody
Aye.
opposed? That motion passes. So we are now at future board meetings. Keep in mind that the election will be next Tuesday. So this will be your last chance for Jeff Klett anyway. I don't have any future agenda items, but I would welcome anything from the board. Other than we will have a discussion on the search process and WASB in more detail. I'm anticipating on the 7th if we can make that work. That's a priority. So hearing none, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I love doing this. I don't get to do it anymore. Thank you, everybody. We will take a short break before we go into closed session. Michelle, would we be better off going in the conference?